Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the Master and None podcast. I'm your host Stephen Murphy as always, and I'm joined by the usual rugby crew of Westy and Sam. Westy's already frozen on the video, so I'm going to ask him to cut or stop the video so that we get his actual audio. Talking, of course, last weekend's actions tonight. A couple of 4 quarterfinals. They were all pretty decent from what I've saw. Anyway, I've seen most of the games live, so. Looking forward to getting stuck into that. We'll start obviously with the 2 Irish teams playing at the weekend, Leinster v Saracens. I would say a shock, Sam, but I don't know. Were you actually shocked by this result?
It's hard to say because I think last week I did say that I thought Leinster would be too strong, just with the Saracens not having played too much competitive rugby in the last couple of weeks. Meaningless rugby, and then the changes from personnel point of view for Saracens the last couple of weeks. Players have left, players have gone out on loan. Obviously Farrell's yellow card. So I did say last week I thought Leinster would be too strong, but I had also, I can't remember offhand if I did or not say it, but I'd caveat that by saying, Saracens were always going to be a tough opponent, and this was going to be their big bang end of the season, the only thing left to play for. So I wasn't overly shocked watching it from the power and pace that they brought into it. But I can't lie and say that I didn't think Leinster would win last week. But it was a good game. It was great. Saracens' game plan was just null and void. Leinster in the first half, they just absolutely decimated them up front. They played that power game that's been so successful for English teams against Irish teams the last couple of years, and for England against Ireland. And when half that pack has got nothing to play for this season except for this, and then they're an international standard pack like this, they're going to be hard to stop. And unfortunately, Leinster didn't get going to the second half.
Yeah. Well, see, just what you dropped off there, I was asking Sam, the headlines would say a shocking loss for Leinster, but were you genuinely shocked by that loss, or was it something that you saw coming?
I don't want to say I necessarily saw it coming. I definitely knew it was going to be, maybe Sam said the same thing, that was definitely going to be probably their biggest challenge so far. I think in a lot of ways, Saracens were probably listening to our podcast last week because they did all the things that Ulster should have done. They took their points early on. Yeah. They built up a good, healthy lead and made Leinster chase the game. And then you're putting Leinster in a situation that they haven't been in since, I don't know when the last time they had to chase a game was, really, especially in that context. So it kind of, I don't know if it shows you how to beat Leinster, but it shows you, what you kind of need to do in a way. They're not used to. What I was thinking before halftime was that there's nobody in this Leinster squad that's standing up and changing the game for them. They're not used to having to do that. Now, I do think when Ryan Baird came on shortly after halftime and Ronan Kelleher, that did happen. They did change their focus. But even going back to the first 5 minutes of the game, Cock headbutts Robbie Henshaw on the ground and gets away with it. If that's a red card. If that gets given, it's a completely different game.
Is that Michael Rhodes? No.
Michael Rhodes,
Yeah. He's been cited afterwards. Yeah, we can speculate that would have changed the game. We'll never know. Fair play for being picked up by the citation people, though, because even in the replays, I was like, "What am I looking at here?" It's so hard to spot.
It's so innocuous, and I've seen a couple of salty Leinster fans on Twitter. It's been quite nice. I've just been looking the Cartman licking the tears off your man. I've been feeling like that all day. But I've seen something. They're like, "Oh, typical cheating Saracens." That Leinster would have won it otherwise. It was Leinster, that's why the citing is there. The citing is for things that are missed, but you still have to beat the team that's on the pitch. It was 15 against 15, and Leinster just weren't good enough on the day, especially in the first half. I said it on Twitter. I was saying that we've never seen Larmour under the cosh. We've never seen Luke McGrath not with time. We've never seen Leinster in the last 3-4 years actually properly challenged, except for Saracens last year. And these are players that Ireland are going to rely on, and Ireland are not going to be the best team 99% of the time. They're going to be the best team maybe 60% of the time. So they have to, these players have to get experience of being under the cosh, and they have to get experience of coming back in the face of adversity like this situation, like them losing at halftime by so much. And I wasn't filled with too much dread on an Irish point of view because I think Leinster did fight back quite well, but it's still prolonged periods of pressure for Leinster is what's going to be needed.
Yeah, like Leinster, the last few weeks have started pretty slow most games, and you couldn't do that against obviously Saracens. But like Saracens kicked off, and it was immediate knock on, and the whole Saracens team were shouting and clapping and slapping each other. They were absolutely ready to go from second one, and they were
That's
properly up for the game. Even when they
that's
scored a try, they all the subs come over like big kind of like doggy pile celebrating. They were incredibly up for this game, and it showed throughout. Their physicality was just incredible, and it's a microcosm of England Ireland last year in Six Nations and the warm up game before the World Cup. We can't, I'm like, Leinster Saracens. You might as well say it's basically England versus Ireland in a lot of ways, but they we can't match that physicality when Saracens bring it, and Leinster couldn't either, and that's an issue because its physicality is something like you either have lads to do it or you don't, and Leinster didn't have that at the weekend, and it showed.
Yeah, but pair up the playbook from an Irish point of view either. Like England have traditionally been more physical than us for since I started watching rugby. They have a bigger player pool to pick from. They have a bit like a more widespread professional game. They have league influence as well. Like these are things that bring that physicality around. They're not competing with underage hurling and football. Like the big lads play rugby, and that's something that we're probably not going to be able to catch up on. So we shouldn't try to force that issue and match them. I don't think we've beaten England in the past when they've had physical teams, and we can beat them again. I just think Leinster were beaten on the day, and I want to make a point like that you about the Saracens players slapping each other on the back. It's a really big aspect of their game that they buy into, and they have for years, is creating that big piss the other team off because of how much you celebrate, almost NFL style. Get in, everyone cheer every ruck and stuff. And I think that worked hugely to Saracens' advantage at the weekend because the stadium was empty and there was no atmosphere, and Saracens brought their own atmosphere. If that was a full packed sea of blue, they could have been completely different. Leinster could have been buoyed by the fans cheering them on, but Saracens kind of became their own fans and gave themselves a little bump there, and it probably worked in the empty stadium on to their benefit. And they were playing some great rugby for the first half. They were really good, and then second half, like, didn't score for most of the second half, but they just defended so well. Like, they stopped Leinster getting any momentum, even when Leinster were kind of clawing back into the game. I didn't believe at any point in the second half Leinster were going to take it.
No, the last 10 minutes I was like, if they score early here, they've all the momentum. But yeah, I know, I can see what you mean. But Westy, do you agree with Sam there? Is this sort of just like Saracens are just an incredibly bad matchup for Leinster?
I don't know if they're an incredibly bad matchup for Leinster. I mean, it's definitely kind of been 2 games in 2 years now where Leinster have kind of come up short for various reasons. I think it was the Saracens captain who was afterwards made a good point that like they're playing so they can play another game together. Like that, half of that team is going away now next year because the regulation violations of the salary cap and stuff. So as Sam said, without the crowd to bolster Leinster forward, they probably just didn't have as much dog in them as Saracens did. I also think Saracens played it kind of more intelligently, and I know it's not worth anything. There was a point where I thought Leinster, after the second try, probably were going to win. You could see that Saracens were really hesitant to bring on their bench because they had nobody on their bench. They didn't have anybody on the bench that could maintain that standard of play. And I guess on the other side of that coin, it kind of irks me a bit when Leinster are saying, like, a certain journalist on Off the Ball, I think I messaged you guys the other day, was saying, oh, with Tyke Furlong injured and Andrew Porter not playing well, Michael Bent's just not good enough. It's like, well, how many do you want? Like, you can't have all of them. Saracens have no bench.
No team in the world has world-class third-string players. Like,
no.
Like, Leinster are human at the end of the day. You're going to have injuries. You're not always going to... Like, I think Andrew Porter is a fantastic player. Probably didn't have the best game of his life on Saturday. Not that I don't think he was overly bad. One or two penalties maybe that he gave away, but a different ref on those scrums, and it probably wouldn't have been him giving away penalties. So.
Yeah, I think we need to mention that though Saracens are very clever, and as you said, they were tactically, I think, better. Saracens live on the line when it comes to penalties, and like Mario Toja's interception in that first half, he was a mile offside, but he spots that the referee isn't looking, he sees it coming, and he takes the chance. And Saracens are very good at that. And Toja's very good at that. And I don't think Leinster are. What's the best word of putting it? They're not dirty enough, or they're not dirty is not the word, but you know what I mean. They're not clever enough or cute enough Cute
Yeah.
enough, yes. They're cute, and I don't mean cuddly. Do you know that kind of way?
But that probably comes from, I think, Leinster being so dominant in the league and Leinster having not being tested for well over a year at this stage. Like, it pains me to say it, but no team in the league has put it to Leinster. And like, we can talk about Munster doing it for 10 minutes. It wasn't a test. Leinster never got out of third gear in that game. They didn't need to unload all the stars. You know, they could do that. And that's where the lack of cuteness comes most of the time. They have 75% possession. They're 3 tries up within 10 minutes in a lot of games. And yeah, that's brilliant in the Pro 12 when you're dominating. But when you're coming up against the Saracens or a Racing or, you know, an Exeter even, like, these are teams that they'll push you, and they're scrapping in the Premiership. They're playing a higher out, and that's Leinster probably just losing that, and that's going to affect them in Europe. Like, so.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, look, Leinster didn't show up in a lot of ways. Yeah, I think we've already said Larmour was definitely showing up in the air. A lot of knock-ons, just not oozing confidence in the air in a lot of ways. And I seen the headline. Sorry, so forgive me if by not actually going into depth in it, I'm coming up, with wrong information here. But someone off the ball this morning said that Leinster don't have any great players. As in like individually great players, which at the time I thought was ridiculous, but in the last few weeks there's definitely, I would agree with that. In the last few weeks no one has stood up and shone the way, like as we said, Leinster have been in third, fourth gear the whole competition, and as we've seen with loads of great teams in the past, you can't just flick a switch and turn it on. It's not possible. You have to ramp up to that stage and continue to be at that stage, and Leinster this week just showing that the lack of tests the last few weeks hasn't helped them when it comes to this game. But I like that. Again, I could be wrong in what I'm interpreting in that headline. Sam, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but is that a ridiculous statement to make at this moment with the Leinster team?
I wouldn't say it's a ridiculous statement. I think where it goes, like, Leinster have no world beaters, is I think that there are, Brian O'Driscoll's, Rowan O'Gara's, like, Sexton aside, in this Leinster team at the moment. There's players like Kelleher with the potential to go on and become those, and Baird and James Ryan, but they're not there yet. But I think Leinster, unfortunately, because of the league and the standard of the league compared to them, are probably victims of their own success. And Ringrose and Larmour, and Baird for 1 or 2 great games have been hailed as, guaranteed Lions starters. Leinster would beat any team in the world. Like, this is the victims of their own success. And, it was just a bit of a reality slap to the face for them. And it was probably warranted, it's probably needed. And, maybe, and from a Connacht supporter point of view, hopefully this bursts that aura and that bubble, and we can see more competitive games against them next year in the league. A couple of losses will benefit Ireland, because it means their players would learn how to lose and how to react to being behind and those sort of things. Because, that's from our point of view, from an Irish point of view, that's what I want to see. Is I want to see how well he can run in 50-meter tries. Like, there's more to the game than that.
Yeah, I agree in that sense. Wesley, what do you think about that headline?
Yeah, I think, look, they've got a lot of youth there, and they're obviously one thing Leinster are great at is bringing the youth through. I definitely think, and I think we've all said it before, that like pundits and Leinster fans get so far ahead of themselves when one of their players has a great game. It's like, as Sam said, they're going to go on and be world beaters and all that. But look, it's a problem, and I said it earlier, and it's a problem we said that Ireland have, is that there's very few people involved in that squad who can come on and change the game. Like, it's not a well-known facet of Irish rugby that we can change our style halfway through. No, none of the 4 provinces really do it, and I'm not saying every other team does it, but I think there has to be someone who comes on, and I think in a way, look, at again in the second half it did change. I think players like Gibson Park was far better than Luke McGrath when he came on. He was able to put momentum back into Leinster attack. But yeah, maybe there's not. To me, I think they're missing Dan Levy. I think Dan Levy coming back. I think he's back for the friendlies this weekend.
Yeah,
would be a huge boost for them.
And Tadhg Furlong.
And Tadhg Furlong, of course. I think there is 1 or 2. I do think Tadhg Furlong is, one of the best front rows in Europe. I think James Ryan's got so much potential, but again, too far ahead of himself. He's too young. Larmour just doesn't have the full round skill set yet. Again, a lot of praise for James Lowe, but like James Lowe been forced into touch on multiple occasions by Saracens. I think, look, it's an easy answer, but I think Leinster were out-taught by Saracens. Leinster, again, and it's the problem. We were saying they never got out of third gear in any other game. But, like, like they didn't have to get out of third gear, and I don't think they had the ability to get out of third gear when they needed to. They had to go into the sheds. And look, somebody said something great at half time, but they couldn't get into the fourth or fifth gear on the pitch when they needed to.
Leo Cullen said, "Lads, come on, we need to get into this game." I don't like, I know you two are massive Leinster fans, but I don't like seeing an English team ever beat an Irish team, and I won't ever like that. And I don't think it's good for the game. The Saracens are still winning at this level after whatever that's happened. So, look, I wasn't happy to see this result, but, Leinster will move on. The season starts again in 2 weeks, and they probably will go maybe undefeated again next year. Who knows?
But you can say all you want about like them not being challenged in the Pro 14. Like that's a very simple problem to fix. They've got a squad of 53. Start dividing the wealth. Invest in the other provinces. Make all of the Irish provinces more competitive, so Leinster can play more competitive rugby. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you make Leinster lads move, but you invest in academies in other places. If we have the talent in one part of the country, we can have it in another part of the country.
Yeah, if you cap academy places or something like that, so that players with a want to break into the where you're based. Ireland is a small country.
Yeah, Sam, maybe shut off your video for once.
No
Yeah, we can touch on that subject again, because again we could be here for 4 hours talking about that. But move on to the second Irish team that was playing this weekend, Ulster versus Toulouse. This game was on Sunday, and I think Ulster, unfortunately, I think they met their match when it comes to, or they've hit their ceiling basically on where they are in Europe. I think this was as far as they could have got, and good season all in all. But also a final and a quarter final is never anything to shake your head at. But Toulouse just physically and tactically just much better in this game. I think Toulouse are a really good outfit. Like they're almost too creative at times, that they don't know what to do. They have so many options that they can go with that they sometimes just end up throwing the ball about and it doesn't work, or there's knock-ons. It's incredible to watch it sometimes, because you're like, where are they going? What are they doing? But it works, and when it does work, it's incredible. But Westy, Ulster, do you agree with what I said there? I think they reached their limit, or could they have won this game?
I don't think. Look, there were moments of brilliance in the game. I think like they went with the 5-2 split, and Burns to go off in, like it was just, you couldn't ride it. Like I don't think they'll be disappointed necessarily in a final and a quarter final, but I think the manner in which they lost both of those games would be more painful than anything else. If they were slightly more competitive in either. Now again, like the Pro 12 final was pretty competitive for the first 50 minutes or so, and I guess, really, Toulouse should have been way further ahead. Like Thomas Ramos missed so many gettable penalties.
He missed at least 3, didn't he? That was 9 points he left on the board.
That was in the first 20 minutes, half an hour. I said it last week, like with the wealth of French international talent, like Anton Dupois is fantastic. Like, he is so good. Entomac as well. Like Jerome Kano in the pack. Cheslin Kolbe is beautiful to watch. Peter Aki, it haunts my nightmares that he was ever staying in Connacht. I don't think he was ever going to stay in Connacht, but Jesus, I'd love to have him.
Yeah, I know. Sam, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam. What did you think watching this game as well? Ulster just not good enough for this level?
I don't think not good enough for this level. I think that's quite unfair. Toulouse are a sensational team of kind of Galacticos. Like they've amassed a really, really good team, and they have a very tough style of play to play against. They like playing to the strengths of their players, just free flowing, using the likes of Colby out wide, getting it wide early, keeping the ball alive, very unstructured when they want to be. And it just probably caught Ulster on the hop. Ulster in a bit of a lull since the lockdown. They've not looked the same outfit they were before that. Cooney's not been firing as well as he had been. I think Stockdale has got a lot of questions to answer about his defence. Well over a year now, 18 months, 2 years almost, in terms of positioning.
Let's bring up the Stockdale thing, because it's been pretty a hot topic since the game. Basically, people slating him for his performance, people saying that he was, the cause of a lot of issues with Ulster. I think personally, look at Colby is an incredible talent. He's going to probably beat you 1-on-1. But I think, as we were saying, Sam, on text, at least have your technique right, or at least give yourself the best chance to try and make a tackle. And Stockdale doesn't do that.
He's at 6s and 7s positionally. That's my issue isn't with missing a tackle on Chesney Colby, because he's not the first, and he's not going to be the last person to do that. My issue is we've seen this week in, week out with Ulster, with Leinster, or not with Leinster, with Ireland. Him being shooting up, him arm tackling instead of shoulder tackling, not getting low enough and missing tackles. And then people throw it back. Like, I know that they've been defensive of him in Ulster and come out and said, oh, you don't know how good he is at tackling and stuff. And remember the intercept in the game. I said, yeah, but the intercept should have been made. The tackle should have been made 2 phases earlier. I don't fancy him at the moment defensively. I think he's a unit and he needs to use that size to his advantage. Like, Horgan was good at it. He was a unit on the wing as well, but he tackled smart and he tackled like a proper winger. But I think a few too many intercepts early in his career, and he's gotten bad habits defensively, and it needs to be sorted out. And like, he's blessed with the coach he has up there. Dan McFarland will definitely do wonders with him. It's up to him to take it on board. I think it's really important for Ireland and for Ulster, because when he's on it and he's ticking, he's a great player. But defensively, the defensive frailties are not. This isn't a snap judgment based off the weekend. This is long time coming. Like, it's been a question on a lot of people's minds, except for Ulster fans. Like, is he good enough defensively? Like, I have Earls and Conway because they're both more solid defensively as Irish wingers.
Yeah, Westy, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Sam. Like, there were some good moments from Stockton as well. I mean, he did. There was one kick deep where he recovered the ball and actually beat Colby and got around him. But again, we've questioned his defense a few times and kind of popping up for the intercept and been caught in no man's land. I think as well, it's more the nature of kind of like the 2 steps in particular that Colby gets him with are pretty much identical. And look, as you say, like, Colby is one of the best in the world. He's going to step you. Like, if you stay inside, he'll beat you outside. And if you go outside, he'll beat you inside. But, I mean, to go back to basic schoolboy rugby, you're told to use the touchline as a defender. Do you know, at least, like, we were always told, if he beats you outside, now as a forward, if he beats you outside you, he beats outside you. But don't let him step back inside you. You know, like, I force him to go to the outside line.
Yeah, that's his. Yeah, when I saw it too, I was like, surely you've done enough film watching on Colby. He likes to step inside. So as you say, Westy, like, you can, if you get a hand on him when he tries to beat you outside, you might push him into touch by his foot or something. You don't necessarily have to make the tackle. You just have to get him out of over the line. But like, it's the same step as you said. Yeah.
Like, the step is a great step. Like, it's quite Cooper-esque in its step, but he's caught so flat-footed that he's never going to be able to defend any step. He's caught so flat-footed because of his body position. I just think there's so much wrong with everything leading up to the missed tackle. And then later on, there's an absolute arms tackle as well that he doesn't even attempt. He goes with his shoulder in. Like, use that size. Use that, just the fact that if you get big, they're going to have to hit you at some point. Like, it's hard to go around you. He's a big guy, but there's a lot of questions to be answered for.
Yeah, I think my last thought on the Stockdale thing is just like, this has been said about Stockdale for the last 2 years, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. So that's our criticism. Like, I tweeted out my criticism of it, and people thought that I was blaming him for the whole loss. I was like, no, I'm not. It's like, attacking wise, we all know how gifted he is, but he needs to make, and it's, simple stuff for a player of that talent to, changes to make, I'm sure, and it would improve his game vastly. But, Ulster, I think, massively missed Cosia here in this game just for his physicality and his carries. It would have, helped when it came to the physicality matchup. Toulouse seemed to make it a point to be physical early on. Like, Uge, is he centre or wing for Toulouse?
I think he's on the wing, wasn't he?
Wing, I think. He came in and made some massive hits, that sets the tone for the rest of the performance. Like, Ulster, at this level, when you come against this team that's this physical, lads like Mike Lowry and Rob Little, unfortunately, just aren't going to cut the mustard, and they're going to get, battered and bruised. And unfortunately, that happened at the weekend. But I think Toulouse obviously well deserved the winner. I thought the referee was quite good. I like Wayne Barnes. No, Stuart Barnes? Wayne Barnes?
Wayne Barnes.
Wayne, always forget to mix up the first names. Stuart Barnes is the pundit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Wayne Barnes. I think he's quite good. I like his communication. Speaks French, which is pretty impressive. But just I thought he was pretty good in that game. But to lose worthy winners, Westy, I think going forward, I think they have a really good chance. What about you?
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, I think most eyes now this weekend are going to be on the Racing Saracens game. I think that's kind of the real interesting one. Just on the Ulster team, I think there were some positives from Ulster. I think Burns was playing well before he got injured. I do think Mike Lowry had some brilliant moments. Just weren't able. It's their lack of clinicality. We said it against Leinster as well. Like amount of times anytime they put good phases together, once they got like into it, Toulouse were able to poach the ball and take it from them or force an error and just outclass them. I think Toulouse would more than likely be in the final. Saracens Racing, I don't know how to call that one. That really depends on the day. I do think Saracens will be hard to beat. I think maybe Saracens Toulouse final could be good to watch.
I don't want to see Saracens in the final, but we'll see. Yeah, definitely, I agree. A lot of positives from Ulster going into next year. A couple of great young players there. Hume has been brilliant the last few weeks.
Yeah, very good.
And he's only young, so a lot of positive to work off the next couple of years and somewhere to build. But just at that weekend, unfortunately, I think they reached their peak. But we'll go on to the Racing Claremont game, which is after the Leinster game, which is a really good, high-scoring game. Sam, what was your kind of initial views on this?
It was enjoyable to watch it this afternoon when I got back. Well, I kind of did it while kind of doing some work after school, but no, it was enjoyable. Two really stacked teams.
Sam goes to school, what a loser!
So ruined.
No, two really stacked teams. High scoring. It was kind of always going to be high scoring. Actually, the last few weeks in Racing, kind of, and Claremont both scoring lots and leaking lots of tries. I was happy out for Zebo. I think I like Zebo a lot as a player, and it's great to see him kind of getting through and doing it. And then Donnacha Ryan as well, who's I think Ireland have kind of missed him the last couple of years. Like, it was a great move for him to go to France when he did. I don't know why or how he was let go when he was, but no, loads of tries. What's your
Sorry, Sam, say that again.
I can't remember the name of your man who scored the 2 tries, but playing really, really well. So, no, it was good. I'm more interested in the Irish teams over the weekend, really. That's why I got to it. But I'm excited to see Racing. I think that Racing Saracens, like, they'll put it up a bit more, I think, than Leinster did from the start. I think they have the kind of the firepower. They've a bit more going for them, and then Finn Russell might, excite a little bit, which would be great.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like, Racing started well and got ahead kind of early, and then kind of never looked back. But because Claremont scored more tries than Racing in this game, but Racing kicked 8 penalties, which it's going to be tough to beat any team that kicks 8 penalties.
4 yellows in the game as well. Like, pretty interesting, but from a French perspective.
Well, Westy, what did you think of this game?
I thought it was really good. Racing obviously getting the first try in 3 minutes. They kind of put a marker down, take their points from then on, and build a lead. It's the same attitude the Saracens had against Leinster, really. I was really happy to see Matsushima back from Claremont. I didn't know how long he was going to be injured for. I'm really excited to see how he gets on in France. Japanese players don't typically do great when they move outside of Japan, so I'm kind of watching this one closely. But yeah, look, I just think Racing had the better kind of game plan. They forced Claremont to chase it. Claremont played some lovely rugby at times, but again, nothing anyway consistent, whereas Racing always kind of looked slightly in control.
The pen out try for Claremont was incredible.
Oh yeah, very good.
Like it's not too often lads bounce off Akatawa. That doesn't. But Zebo, he's like deceptively quick, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He covered over that ground. I know your man was jogging, but like, he still covered the ground and made a decent tackle attempt on him. You know what I mean? Like, if it wasn't on the touchline or the try line, he would have, stopped him pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, happy for Zebo, obviously. Yeah, I do like Zebo, and the fact that there's a couple Irish lads in that team now, it's going to be fun to kind of cheer them on.
It'd be great if Racing did win it. It would make Donnacha Ryan, like the first Munster man to win a Hurricane Cup in about 12 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he was in the 08 team, wasn't he? So he'd have 2 Hurricane Cup medals, which would be fantastic.
Decorated. Talk about decorated. As skin, as Simon Zebo always calls him. We'll move on then. Exeter Northampton was the other game as well. Exeter obviously massive favourites going to this game and sort of just kind of kept themselves ahead and did enough, and then at the end pulled away. That Slade lad he was impressive. That first try, he made a beautiful kind of run and pass for the Exeter try. But Sam, again, this was pretty comfortable, I think, for Exeter in the end.
Yeah, they would have thought it was going to be comfortable. Like, they're kind of running away with the Premiership at the moment. They're on the media the last couple of weeks and saying how excited about the team he is. And, they're a really well put together team. They've not gone out in the Bristol or done the Saracens and, signed the huge, big world beaters. Like, I know Hogg was a great signing, but like, they've put together a team that plays very, very well. They're great to watch. Vermeulen was very good. Noel Hill, I think they scored 5, maybe 6 tries. Can't remember offhand. Really good to watch, and I'm excited to see if they can go on. Like, they've got the chance to do a Premiership and European double, so that'll definitely be a massive motivator. It'd be huge for them as a club. It'd be really big. And Toulouse at home. Toulouse are going to put it to them. It's going to be a great game of rugby to watch. But they're at home. They can get a bit of G from that. Might be hard for Toulouse to travel in that regard. So it's the signs for them. And I know you're not keen on English teams, but I wouldn't be too down if I saw Exeter getting through ahead of Toulouse. Like, obviously Toulouse are a beautiful team to watch, but it'll make for a nice story, I think, if they got into the final, because they've gone about it the right way in a few years instead of.
They stuck within the salary cap.
Did they win the Premiership 2 years ago? Last year, when did they win?
Well, last year, no, it would have been Saracens last year. So I'll just double check for you there now. And then just from Northampton's point of view, it was tough on them. They were absolutely crocked with the board earlier, and they had a young lad who was like 18 who converted from number 8 to prop playing, and he played 70-something minutes. Like, it didn't disgrace himself at all. So fair play to them for putting it up to them, but I just think it was just always going to be a bit too far for them this time.
Yeah, they did. In fairness, Northampton kept fighting till the end. So fair play to them. But Westy, what about you? What did you think?
I only saw the highlights now, so I can't speak too in-depthly into it. But yeah, again, I think Exeter, whatever chance kind of Northampton might have had, Exeter getting those 2 quick tries, well, not quick tries, but like going two converted tries up to a penalty, I think, after 25 minutes. I think you put kind of a depleted Northampton under the cosh then, and they just, as Sam said, they just didn't really have the resources to recover then later on in the game. Although they, like Dan Bigger played well, like they did get a couple of scores in, they kind of really did give a good show of themselves, I think. I just think, yeah, Exeter were just far too clinical and kind of took every opportunity that came up.
Yeah. We'll look ahead now to the semi-final. We'll just give a few predictions. So, Saracens Racing in the first game. Westy, do you want to give us your prediction?
I want to say Racing, I really do, but I don't think Leinster took enough out of Saracens to have them be tired going into this game. Just as you say, like with England in the World Cup, they beat the All Blacks and then they lost heavy to South Africa. Sometimes you see, like, after a big win, they don't follow through again. So I hope Racing are able to do that to them. But I just think Saracens are just really good at slowing the game down and imposing their game on the opposition. They might just take a bit of the flair out of that Racing team. So I think Saracens.
Sam?
I think that everyone will have a really nice time.
No one will have a nice time. Nobody enjoys playing Saracens. Even Saracens don't like playing for Saracens.
Yeah. I think it'll be a tough game for Saracens. I think it'll be tougher than last week. But I think they'll come through it. I just think after beating Leinster, which was the big hurdle that they'd been waiting months and months to get past, and people have been like, how will Saracens react? Should they even be in the tournament? And then they went and beat Leinster. This is their chance to go on a big, like, 2 middle fingers out the sunroof of a limousine around European rugby and be like, yeah, salary cap broken, go in the championship, but European champions, let us defend our title. Oh, we're not allowed. So I think this is just going for them. This is going to be the be all and end all. And like Westy said, a lot of them will be G'd on by wanting to play one last game with their mates that they going all over the place after this year. So I think Saracens will take it, but that's not to say Racing can't play well. Like it's going to be a cracking game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Racing. I think my logic here is that, as you said, Westy, after 55 minutes, Saracens really didn't have anyone to bring on and kind of totally slow down, where I think Racing are going to be much closer to them after 60 minutes than Leinster were. I think they just have enough to pull out in the last 20 minutes, which I'm hoping, because I don't want to see Saracens do well for obvious reasons. So hopefully that's the case. Exeter Toulouse, I'll start this one off. I think Toulouse, I think they're going to win the whole thing. I'm on the Toulouse train. I think they're fantastic to watch.
You go on about Saracens beating Leinster. Toulouse have already beaten the best team in the competition twice. So, you really can't stop them, I think.
Who would that be, Westy?
Connacht, obviously.
Of course. Sorry,
yeah.
How could I forget? Well, that's
we actually put it to them as well. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, we're close to Ulster.
Yeah. Did you lose?
Yeah. We beat them 2 or 3 years ago, though, and then 2 or 3 years before that as well.
If they hadn't gotten so scared of us 4 years ago and signed Pitaki from us, maybe it would have been different.
Yeah. You make a point.
David, Saracens are planning for Leinster, but Toulouse are planning for us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think Toulouse are too good. I think they have too much firepower. I think when it clicks, it's just unstoppable. But I could be wrong. We'll see. But I'm going with a Racing Toulouse final, which will just be pornography in a lot of ways. So, Sam.
I'd love to see Exeter do it. And I said, they have the chance to go for the double, which would be great. And it is definitely a big motivator for them. This will be a good game again. The two of them are great semi-finals. Looking forward to the weekend. But I just think, if the way they are, like Pitaki is a sensational player. Cheslin Colby, they're so stacked, and it's going to be very, very hard to beat them. I think the motivation for Toulouse to win the 5 before Leinster do, or the motivation for Exeter to win the double, is going to G on both teams. So I'm going to say Toulouse as well, but I really think that Exeter, they've run away with the Premiership. They have a chance to make a massive statement here. So it'll be an interesting game. See how it plays out.
Yeah, Westy, finish off our predictions.
Oh man, I really want to say Exeter just to disagree with you guys, but I can't. I don't know enough about Exeter to back it up. Look, I just think if Toulouse play anything like they played, their ability to keep the ball alive against Ulster was staggering. They had so many stopped standing offloads that somehow resulted in breaks. It was just, I don't know how they're able to do it. I think it's a little bit like Flash against Force in a way. Maybe Exeter can kind of dog them into a bit of a tighter, closer knit fight. But if Toulouse have any space at all, I think they're going to win.
And Flash against Force, I'm always backing Flash.
Yeah. Personally,
because who doesn't want to see Flash?
Yeah, even for Flash. Savior of the universe.
Our main man Anna, a big supporter of the podcast, tweeted in asking a question. 2 questions. First one being, right, Westy, let me set the scene. Sam, I'll come to you next. You're the last man back, Westy. You're the Jacob Stockdale role. One player's coming at you 1v1. Who would you rather that player be? Radrara, I definitely pronounced that wrong. Randranra, or Colby?
So you're really asking me, do I want to look stupid or do I want to be crushed into tiny little smithereens? I'd rather look stupid and have Colby step me than have Semi Randrandra flatten me into oblivion.
I think you're right there, Sam.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Cheslin Colby as well, because I reckon if Semi's running at me after tucking my semi, just watching him I just get absolutely annihilated trying to just do that fall over tackle that I do when someone's bigger than me. But if Cheslin Colby
you could do a 3-hand tackle though. Think about that.
Oh yeah, but if Cheslin Colby's running at me and he's doing his big Quade Cooper step, I think I just revert back to my centre back Sunday league days and just go for kick the shins and get the red card, but stop the try. Just a big boot, take the feet from under him, and just like people will understand. I think people will get it.
Yeah. I think, yeah. I'll go Kobe as well. In fact, I'll go with my my previous background as being a goalkeeper. For penalties, I would just guess a side and dive early. So I
Oh
would
yeah,
just
that's
guess which way he's going to go, and then you 50-50 chance you might look like the best tackler in the world, and then just think about how smug you'd be with Jacob Stockdale. Be like, I tackled him. You know what I mean? That's how I'd look at it. So thanks. Second question then again, Anna. So we want to discuss our European Player of the Year. The nominations have been out, and it's actually quite a tough one because if you had asked me this a few months ago before the break, I would have said John Cooney hands down. But it's definitely been lackluster since his return. So I'll just kind of list off the nominations here. So we have obviously Marcel Coetzee, John Cooney, Luke Cowan, Dickey, Tyke Furlong, Stuart Hogg, Jerome Kano, Jordan Larmour. Just going to let that one sit for a while. George Moala, Roman Intimac, Semi Randrandra, Gary Ringrose, Finn Russell, Sam Simmons, Teddy Toma, and Vakatawa. It's tough. It really is tough because it's very hard to kind of remember before the pandemic, and like obviously I thought John Cooney was the best player in Europe at that stage, but can you give it to him after his kind of poor form since the return? Westy, what do you think? Is it what do you think in regards to the nominations?
Yeah, I think maybe I'm trying to find the nominations here so I can kind of think about this a bit better. Cooney, I think, unfortunately, like obviously we've come back at the end of the season and he hasn't been at the form that he was. Unfortunately, it's also the business end of the season. With him not able to convert that kind of, let's say, pool game form into knockout rugby form, I think I just don't think I wouldn't be able to give it to him.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, is Anton Dupont wasn't nominated? Like, I think he's the best scrum half in the world. Like,
no, not nominated. Who did you say, Sam, and he's not nominated before we started?
Bundy. Shame that.
No,
I was
Bundy.
saying Maro Itoje, I think, has been sensational again.
Yeah, not mentioned. I think
Not mentioned again.
the guy that everyone's kind of saying at the moment now has all the momentum is Randrandra because of just the hype and the performances had.
He's been brilliant for Bristol since the break, and he was devastating with Bordeaux as well earlier on. Phenomenal player. Has the benefit of being a highlight reel player. I think Jerome Kano has been so impressive all year. Like we talked about him earlier on in the season before the lockdown. Cooney, I don't think that the post-lockdown performances should be that detrimental to how good he's been. If there was no lockdown and the last 3 games had happened when they were supposed to happen, just straight after the last ones, and he had played the way he has, people would go, it's just a blip, yeah, but he's still been unbelievable all season. I think it's just the fact that he was so good and there was 6 months off and then he's come back and he's not been too good. I think people are just kind of recency biased more than anything. I do think, like, if you were looking at the season as a whole, I think he definitely deserves to be in the conversation. It's really, really tough to discuss. Like Finn Russell, shafting probably gets him some extra points. And then, like Marcel Coetzee's been brilliant. Furlong's for himself hasn't probably been as good the last few years, but he's still devastating to play against. Stuart Hogg's just in there for the token Scottish player.
Finn Russell is Scottish.
Yeah,
but
is he though?
Is he two Scots? Two Scots.
No, I like Stuart Hogg, and I think he's been good, but I don't think he's been anywhere near any of the rest of them this season. No, Entimac and Kano, brilliant. I'm going to go with Semi just because I've enjoyed watching him the last couple of weeks, not because I actually think over the entire course of the season he was any better than John when he was running an Ulster team that were flying high, and without the lockdown probably would have been a shoe-in for this position. He was kicking to win. He was bringing players into the game. He was playing some of the best scrum half play I'd seen in Ireland in a long time. So, I'm going to go with Cooney.
Westy, what do you think?
Yes, he's Semi's kind of nominated playing under the Bordeaux, like as a
Bristol,
Bordeaux player as
Strongbow.
opposed to Bristol. Like
Oh, he's
I think,
both. He's both.
yeah, I think Semi Mandrandra is probably the best individual player in the world at the moment. And I think like we've already seen flashes of what he can do when he's being coached by Pat Lam. Like I think this year he's going to be the player of every tournament that he plays in.
Oh yeah.
But again, look, I don't have enough knowledge of Bordeaux pre-lockdown to kind of make a full statement
They're
on
in
that.
the
Challenge,
they
I know,
beat
yeah. I
Edinburgh.
haven't watched them closely enough. I'd go with toss up between Kano and Entomac. I'd go with Roman Entomac. I just think the guy's class.
Yeah, that's fair enough. This is the thing. It's tough because of the pandemic.
There's a
It's
gap
nearly,
there in the
it's
memory
like
where
two
you're kind of like,
seasons nearly.
yeah.
Yeah, two. You know, so it's I like Leinster. I think obviously been incredible, but I don't think there's been any standout. I think Gary Ringrose has been very good, but I don't know if he's been to that level where you could say that he's been the player of the year. Same with Furlong, and I don't think Larmour has been that level definitely. Um, I think I might stick with Cooney in the sense that I think I agree with you, Sam. He was just so good before the break that does 3 or 4 bad games now ruin that? I think he will. I don't think he's gonna win it because I think that will be taken into account or into effect. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know.
It's complete recency bias because I think that if that blip of 3 games happened when it should have happened, which was 6 months ago, people would just consider it a blip and say, "Oh, that's unfortunate." But how good has he been all year? I think it's the fact that the goodness was 6 months ago. You're forgetting just how devastatingly good he was. That being said, like Wesley, you said there, like Kano is like I remember us having conversations early on in this podcast and unplayable for a while. Like so, you know, it's such a hard decision to make. I don't know how they make it. I'd say they just throw them all at a wall and hope for the best.
It's going
Under
to be tough.
recency, I don't think it's all recency bias for Cooney. I think you have to look at the weights of the game. Like, there's no point beating Bath once you're already qualified. You know, you can put as many points on them as you want. Like, you have to be able to perform in knockout rugby. I'm not saying he shouldn't get it. I mean, I take your point. Maybe I'm underestimating just how good he was early on. But you have to take into account how these players reacted to being in a really high-pressure situation.
Yeah, well, that's a good point too. I think Kano and Intimac should definitely be considered. Like, if you beat Connacht twice in the same year, you should definitely be considered for Player of the Year.
Give them the title,
So,
man. They've earned
it. So, Ian, I don't think we've really come up with a conclusive answer because it's just really tough. Let us know if you're listening out. Let us know. Tweet us what you think your Player of the Year is and give us your reasons why, because there's some great players on this list and there's a few deserving winners. So I think we'll leave it at that. Lads, thanks again for joining us. Pleasure as always. You can follow the podcast on all social medias at Master of None Pod on Twitter, Master of None Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And follow us there and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you won't miss anything. Boys, as always, pleasure having you on, and we'll do it again next week.
Cheers, buddy. Bye.
Good luck.